Welcome to And That's When I Realized, the truth and comedy of midlife with me, Susan Dolci.
And me, Leone Dyer. We are two good friends navigating the twists and turns of that middle part of life, and we are laughing our way through it.
Don't get us wrong, it's not all that funny all the time. There's so much we're unprepared for. Adult children, changing bodies, aging parents. We want you to know that you are not alone in these challenges. So sit back, get a front row seat as we share true life stories with a fresh perspective and just a pinch of irreverence. And That's When I Realized starts now.
Hey everyone, welcome to And That's When I Realized. I'm Leone Dyer.
And I'm Susan Dolci.
And this is a show where we're having fun. This is a show where we're tackling the truth and comedy of midlife. And Susan and I are best friends who we get together. We just get together. I'm not even going to say how often anymore to share our joys, the challenges, the laughs, and discuss all those things that friends share. So I don't know about you, but we thought by the time we hit our mid-50s, we would kind of have it figured out. But as it turns out, there's a whole lot we didn't expect. And that's what we're sharing with you. So today's show, we're looking back over the past year of And That's When I Realized shows, some of the highlights and the topics that created the most chatter with us and our listeners. So get a cup of coffee, tea, or whatever your drink and join us.
So for those of you who are not watching live, I said, when we were prepping for this show, I said in honor of graduation season, we should do like senior superlatives. So if you can't see us, we both have graduation caps on. And mine was made for a cone head of some sort because there's so much extra room. I can't imagine whose head is that tall. And Leone is wearing, mine's black and Leone's is white. So I guess it's good sheep, bad sheep. I don't know. And you are wearing the one that your daughter wore in high school, which I think is sweet.
Yeah, this is her. Yeah, this is the tassel that every student would get. And then depending on like honors and stuff, then you get the gold and the difference. So this is the standard. The other one she has. Yeah. So today's
Leone,
show is going to be fun.
It's going to be fun. Did you ever have a superlative? Were you ever given a superlative?
Oh,
just in general.
Oh my gosh, I did. And I'm not even going to. Oh, okay. Yeah, I actually, what do you think mine would have been?
Most likely to tap a maple tree.
Well, that was already happening. No, one year I got most shy.
Wow, I would not.
That
think
was
that.
Well, yeah, I know. I've come a long ways. And yeah, another was for I don't know the wording, but like being a jokester or
like most pranksterous.
or most laugh the most or something like that. Yeah.
Well, at least you didn't get worst driver, which I did not get. But that was a superlative at my kids' high school. And every year they were like, who's going to get that one? Because you knew who had all the car accidents during the year. We didn't have them for my senior class. If we did, I don't recall. Like, I don't even remember seeing a yearbook or anything, but we did have a sort of a mini one in 8th grade of about maybe a dozen things. And I got best dressed.
Oh, I could totally see that. Oh my gosh. Susan always looks amazing. Even when she shows up for like at retreats in her yoga gear, it's like, I think she steams everything or she just looks perfect. She looks perfect all the time.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for that.
Maybe not when you're sleeping and you're snoring and all that. But,
Well, let's see. My oldest got most likely to tweet on her deathbed. And
Ooh,
now she actually is in digital fundraising for a living. So that would kind of make sense.
yeah.
And my youngest got most likely to rule the world. And she just got a bachelor's and a master's in political science. So there's still a chance.
Wow. That's,
Yeah.
yeah.
Anyway, okay. So we went through and we came up with 6 shows that we felt met with the superlatives that we came up with.
Yes.
And you want to take the first one?
Well, we kind of, yeah. I will just add also, we kind of had the shows that were like the highlights for us, and we're like, okay, like we kind of created um the topics around that.
Correct.
But yeah, so the first one, the most eye-opening show. So this one, yeah, and this was mine. I love this one, and it was the intuitive eating with Justine Sloan. And that one was, yeah, I always struggled with the whole diet culture.
Mhm.
And so that one, I think I really, yeah, let me just gather my thoughts here while I'm like, there's a lot happening because the diet culture is still within me. So I
Mhm.
feel like I'm not necessarily speaking 100% authentically in saying that I completely wrapped around the intuitive eating mindset. However, what was the most eye-opening or of her show was the thought process in the foundation of intuitive eating.
Mhm.
And that was liberating for me to hear. Um, so there was a lot of things in there that, I mean, just her journey. So she was a fitness model who turned transformational coach, but in that, her journey from going from being incredibly thin and living in that diet culture of not eating fat, not eating carbs, and she was miserable, and
Well,
she hated
and
her body.
she was a, as she'll call it, what she would say, she was dubbed a chubby child.
Yep.
And so she remembers, like, in her tween years starting on diets. And one of the statistics, it's hard to say, is 80% of girls have been on diet since the age of 10. Like, that's how much body image affects our young women today. And I shouldn't just say women. I mean, men have body image
Oh,
issues as
yes.
well. And so when what she found was that, like, I think she was in college and she started going to the gym and was like, wow, like, I'm good at this. This is what I can do. This is, I'm making changes to my body. People are telling me how great I look. And then she, like you said, she got into the fitness modeling industry and was very, very successful. And she was winning bodybuilding competitions and everything. So for her to shift her mindset, I mean, I think to me that is what's so radical about her as a coach, is that she's really gone the full circle.
Mhm.
And and because one of the reasons we wanted to have her on the show, like as Leone mentioned, was to just understand what intuitive eating really even is, because we know healthy eating, we know, how, macros, or some people might not even say like the whole keto thing is healthy, but it's how to listen to your body to eat correctly. And I remember the one thing that she said that I wish had been our sticky note for that show, and that she always tells her clients to ask themselves, what does my body need right now? Like, what can I feed
Yeah.
my body that's
What's
the
the
best?
best thing?
Right.
Yeah. What's the best thing for my body right now? And I've actually incorporated, it was one of the things that I started incorporating in my life after that show was my big thing is when I'm stressed, and my family knows this, that when they see the spice gumdrops, the bag of the spice gumdrops on the, on the table, or They know, oh, mom is at her limit. She cannot take any more. That's it. She's stressed. She's overwhelmed. They just know it. And it was kind of my little, my way of dealing with whatever situation was happening. However, I was also feeling incredibly guilty for eating those. So it was just a cycle that I was constantly in. And then, so that after her show, I realized, like, you know what, if I'm really stressed and that's my go-to, and it's not a constant, it's maybe like once every so many weeks or sometimes every week. But I'm like, okay, no, maybe my body, my digestive system, my nutrients, I'm not feeding my body healthy, but right now this is calming my mind down. And that's what I need at this moment. And oddly enough, I have found that, because the other thing that I would do all the time is I'd step on the scale, step on the scale, step on the scale.
Like every day?
Not every day, but after I had the spiced gumdrops, I knew that in my mind that was a bad, in quotes here, bad food. Therefore, I was doing something bad to my body. And it had a negative emotion that was going into it. So I automatically knew that's going to cause me to gain weight. And I don't know if I willed myself to gain the weight, but I would, regardless of what I ate beyond that bag of gumdrops. And then after that show that I started incorporating, like, nope, I'm just doing this to calm myself down. Rather than a glass of wine, I'm having spiced gumdrops, or I'm only going to have 10. I'm going to have 10 and see how I feel. And yeah, I need 10 more, so I kind of work through that. And then I just, like, I didn't care. I didn't step on the scale. I didn't after that. It was okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so go ahead.
No, I was going to say another thing. Another reason I really wanted to understand intuitive eating is that I have a daughter in her 20s. I have nieces who are in their early 20s as well. And they really are anti-diet culture. And they get very upset when my nieces, their mother or my daughter gets upset at me when I am very strict on what I eat. Even like if we went out for sushi, I'm like, right now I can't do that because I'm doing this, I'm eating this certain way and I can't have rice. It's like, but mom, we were going out. You knew we were doing this.
Right.
And I wouldn't bend and I was being strong. And that would she's like, why are you doing that? Yeah. Like, why can't you just enjoy the rice? And then tomorrow, just like, okay, I overindulged. I spent this much money. So now I can't spend it later. I mean, so I wanted to understand where they're coming from, because I'm like, I thought they were very strong in their will, but I also thought, are they being naive? And now I'm realizing, no, they get it. They get it. Yeah.
And I'm so glad because,
yeah,
because that statistic that she gave us, I thought was mind blowing that, at the tender age of 10, girls are already thinking about diets. If you'd like to find out more about Justine, you can find her at justinesloan.com. And she has a book out. It's called Someone I Love Lives Here. I'm sure you can find that where you buy your books. We're pro local bookstore.
Yes.
But yeah, she was fascinating to have on. And I really did it. I feel almost like she gave me permission.
Yeah.
To go ahead and to really to eliminate the guilt. For me, it was guilt of like, I shouldn't have eaten that. I'm going to have an upset stomach, or I'm going to either gain weight, or I'm going to, and the guilt. And we should not have guilt associated with food. That's just, yeah.
100%.
All right. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about most likely the show that you're most likely to share with your partner. So if you are a listener of the show, you can run through and maybe think of the shows that we've had that you'd be like, I would have shared that with my partner. You are listening to And That's When I Realized, and we will be back in a little bit. Welcome back. This is And That's When I Realized. I'm Susan Dolci. I'm here with my co-host, Leone Dyer, also known as my best friend. And we are doing season 1 superlatives. We came up with 6 shows that we felt we learned so much from. We came up with 6 most likelies or most ofs. And before the break, we were talking about most eye-opening. And now we're going to skip to the show that we're most likely to share with your partner. And this was also a Leone request.
Yep.
And it was with, we interviewed Chaplain Candy Worman, and it was about inherited family trauma. And Candy is a good friend of ours, actually. And but she has so much knowledge around inherited family trauma, and she's a grief counseling and just an amazing human. What was the standout for you in that show, Leone?
That we think not only do we enter this life with physical genetics, like color of eyes from our parents, and a certain, the way that we act, or, certain body movements. But you don't think that the trauma that your grandparents had could still be living within you.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's one thing to be, to physically, like, it could actually still be within you. The trauma could still be living within you, and you have no clue why.
Mm-hmm.
So, and Candy was talking, and I don't remember, I apologize for this, if it was in our show or if it was a show that she had done previous, I think with you, maybe, that there was a person that was afraid of the fire. Do you remember this?
Actually, yeah, that was in I think that was in Mark Wolyn's book.
Okay.
I think that was an example from Mark Wolyn's book. It didn't happen, or it didn't start with you, is the name of that book. And there was a person who was suicidal. One of his patients was suicidal. Mm-hmm. And he said, well, out of curiosity, how would you take your life? And she said, her brother worked at a forgery or something, and she was going to throw herself into a vat of molten metal. And he thought that was different, because that's not your typical way to,
right.
And so he started to explore that with her, and he found out that one of their relatives had, I don't remember if they had died in a fire or if they were in the Holocaust, but there was definitely there had been an ancestor who had died by fire. Yeah. But the thing is, like what we were talking about with Candy, is usually these traumas are the things that people don't talk about.
Yes.
And so it's the family, it's the skeletons in the closet, it's the stuff that's kept under the rug, or it's we don't talk about that mm-hmm. uncle or whatever. And without knowing that the trauma is actually in ourselves and gets handed down.
Yeah. And I think, and as just healing yourself, and working on yourself, that's, understanding that is fantastic. But when you have a partner and the two of you come together and they're dealing with their inherited trauma, you're dealing with yours. I mean, it almost is like, okay, so before we react to anything, let's just step back and let's analyze, and not, I have a husband who analyzes everything. So that's a huge gift for him. I'm handing him the card to say, all right, here we go. But it's to step back and really view what is happening and why, and that's my big word now for the year, is why, is to ask ourselves, why am I acting this way? Is this something that my parents would have done? Is this something that and why am I holding on to this? this fear or this
Mhm.
anxiety or this understanding, because a lot of it is like an understanding of how we do things or how we think, because it's been passed down, like being afraid of like the fire.
Mhm.
And it's just to explore that. Unfortunately, a, not many of us still have our grandparents or our great grandparents, but we still have our parents, some of us still. But just to explore that
Yeah.
and to understand that it stays with us. It's not, and just stuffing it down and pretending it doesn't exist, it's not going away.
Well, yeah,
And
because it's not just, now that we know about epigenetics, and that it's real, it's scientific. Um, it, it it definitely encourages us to ask the questions, find out about the stuff that people didn't want to talk about, find out about the traumas, the
yeah,
suicides, the murders, the people who were imprisoned. I mean, it's just, usually when you hear about it, and you first go to is like Holocaust makes sense, slavery makes sense, like all of these things that seem really obvious, but
there's,
it's
yeah.
yeah, it's even the
One of the
subtle
things
stuff.
that, one of the ways, and um, is when you start doing your genealogy
Mhm.
and you're realizing like, whoa, like you start going down like, wait, what happened? Like where, like all of a sudden, like half of the, your family tree is cut off and put through the wood chipper. And you're like, what happened? So you get to find out these things, that the sibling had a fight with that sibling and they moved away and never talked ever again. And that leaves trauma,
Yeah.
things like that. Yeah. So you want to move on?
Move on. Let's move on
The
to most
most,
likely to share with your girlfriends.
hmm. Well, did you share any of this before we announced?
Oh, with girlfriends?
Yeah.
Um, no, I would have had this conversation with my mom had she been alive. because
We didn't
because
have that one.
this was my mom had this issue greatly. So who is the guest, Leon? You tell us the guest. Tell us.
Okay, Carrie Kyman.
Kryman.
Okay. And she's a Pilates instructor, but it was on pelvic health, pelvic floor health. And let me tell you, this is huge. Susan and I have actually been talking about this when we do get together. But Susan's mom, unfortunately, had a constant, it can pretty much urinary tract infection.
Yeah. I mean, I
Yeah.
I believe her. She was septic. I believe that's what actually
Mhm.
ended up taking her life, was from, because she did have a urinary tract infection at the time. The meds weren't working.
Yeah.
And I believe she was septic.
Yeah. And so Carrie was lovely. I mean, she was very animated and excited and just, I mean, she wanted to share that as much as time as some of us, not I, but some of us put into doing our hair and our makeup and all that, we need to put into strengthening that pelvic floor. And it's okay to talk about.
Right. That's the biggest
And
thing. Yeah.
yes.
To bring it to, and to bring it to the surface. I mean, now I think it's great how, it used to be, you'd see ads for not just Depends, but like the liners or whatever. And now they sell underwear it's underwear and it catches leaks. And so it's not like you have any bulk or you feel like somebody
Mhm.
can see what you're wearing through your clothes. So, I mean, they're making huge advances of making this coffee table talk or dinner table talk. And it's not to pretend that it doesn't happen. One of the things she said that blew me away is how like Kegels are great, but there's a right way to do them and a wrong way to do them,
Yes.
and not to do them constantly. That's why I am going to sign up for her course over the summer. Now that I've got some more time, I'm going to definitely get into this and make it a part of my regular routine, which you have done, right, Leon?
Mhm.
But what she was
Yeah.
saying is how like all of the connective tissue in our pelvic area, even in our inner thighs, and like all of that, working and moving and strengthening all of that. It's just not Kegels. It's the whole core, lower core area that's important to keep strong for pelvic floor health. And side note, it's supposed to make for better sex. So a plus.
Yeah, there you go. There's your reason right there. But also a lot of times when we think of, pelvic health or strengthening, it's for someone that's older.
Right.
And you can actually having a child, or maybe, I'm trying to think if she gave possibilities of before even having a child that would weaken your pelvic floor. But having a child can cause immense damage to the pelvic floor. And so just,
especially if you have 10-pound babies.
Yes, those 10-pound babies.
Those 10-pound babies.
Yeah, gotta love them.
Yeah.
There's actually a card I once received. It was my kids bought it for me for Mother's Day. And it was just one of and it said, the reason I am giving you this gift or something like that is that I think it was more of a sympathy card or something. And it goes, I am so sorry but I will honor you today or something, because the reason that you pee when you laugh is because of me or something like that. I botched it, but it's very funny. Yeah. So that one I actually did share.
Yeah.
And yeah. And when I, am out and about, and for my friends who watch, listen to the show and the podcast, they actually were like, and it's so funny, like, hey, I watched that show. They whispered to me, and I'm like, which one?
We can talk about it now.
It's okay. We can still say it. Yeah. But
if you'd like to find out more about Carrie Kryman, and her website is pilates.works. And the pelvic floor program is actually, it's called Pilates. It's PF Pilates. And she has been trained by a man who's the founder of this particular style of exercise. His name is Dr. Crawford. I don't want to screw up his first name. He's in Reno, I believe, but there are women all around the country who are certified in this. So you could actually, if you're near one, you could actually go to in-person classes. But pelvic floor health is out of the closet and into the ethers.
And before we jump off for a break, I just wanted to tell everyone, Chaplain Candy Warman, she's amazing, but you can get in touch with her at sacredworkwithcandy.com. So that's sacredworkwithcandy.
And she has a book
CANDI.
Yeah. She's got a book coming out. It's in the process with Moxie, and it's probably gonna be out in a year or so. So we'll probably have her on again when the book comes out. Anyway, we're gonna take a quick break. You're listening to, and that's when I realized. We'll be back in a little bit. We're back discussing season 1 superlatives that Leone and I made up to talk about our favorite 6 shows. I shouldn't say favorite. They were just the ones that impacted us in different ways. Because I think I really enjoyed all of our shows. We had some really amazing guests for season 1. And anyway, we picked 6. So we had most likely, most eye-opening, most likely to share with your partner, most likely to share with your girlfriends. And that was Carrie Kryman about pelvic floor health. And then I had to say, I came up with this one, most likely to keep you up at night.
So Susan, what keeps you up at night? Do tell.
We read, and this was my idea. We did the first Besties book club, and it was Tony Robbins' latest book called Life Force. And, it's all about advances in medicine. He does a deep dive into stem cell therapy. But it was just, it was, it made me wonder all the things that could be wrong with me that I don't know about. And that I kind of don't think I want to know about. And that's like in the book, Tony Robbins is like, you should want to know that these things are wrong with you so you can catch them early. And I'm like, yeah, but then I have to like, then I'm like, am I quote a sick person? And now I need to like, that's what I want to have healthy person mindset, and that I don't need to go to the doctor or worry about all this stuff. One of the things I found fascinating in that book was he did a deep dive into autoimmune disease too. And I had no idea how many people, 50 million people suffer from autoimmune disorders. 50 million people.
Yeah.
And the range, I mean, there's so many autoimmune disorders. And that has me thinking, I don't recall if he went into this because he's big into the nutrition aspect too, but like, have these always been around? Is it environmental? Is it nutritional? Is it like, why? Okay, I'm going to give my own personal story because he talks about this in the book, and I actually used them. He was talking about hair loss. And so androgenetic hair loss, which is kind of like where you kind of lose hair all over. It's like, it's not necessarily like male pattern balding, but it's kind of general all over hair loss for women, usually the top of the head. And I was curious about this because starting like around July, I started to lose hair at the crown of my head. And in the beginning, my kids were like, there's no bald spot. I'm like, oh, yes, there is. And it got bigger and it got bigger. And now it's about 2.5 inches in diameter. And the hair is growing back in. But so he recommended this company called Harkliniken. And then it was Harkliniken who came up with these ointments. No, I shouldn't say ointments, wrong word. Serums. They call it a blend. They blend a mixture of it's all organic stuff to apply in the balding area. So I was like, I'm doing this. So I get on, they have like a test, like a little quiz that you can take. And they're like, we can help you. And so then they reached out and they said, we're doing free consultations for the month of March, I think it was. And I was like, oh, wow, great. Free consultation. Cause I'm at this point, I'm ready to, I don't care how much it's going to cost. I want my hair to grow back. I'm tired of this because I can't literally, there's very few ways I can wear my hair so that you don't see it. Yeah. And so, and this isn't to diss the company at all, because what they did was very ethical, but so I reached out to them and then they asked me if I would send pictures, and I sent pictures, and they reached back out to me and said, we can't help you. And I was like, what? But you helped Tony Robbins. He had a bald spot. Like, what? You helped Ricky Lake. I was like, why can't you help me? And the reason, because they will not work with somebody that they know they can't help, because they don't want them to buy these very expensive products and them not work. Very up and up. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But then in all of my research with all this, I found out that my particular kind of balding is autoimmune. Ding, 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 ding. Mm-hmm. There's no history of it in my family. Like there could be countless reasons why. And typically this kind of balding does grow back for most people. So it is growing back. But that kept me up at night.
Yeah. Well, because it was very personal. Yeah. And it probably, I don't know. I mean, I have a lot of hair, so I would be okay if I lost some, but yeah, I think if I was going balding, that would be a keep up at night. I will say, I mean, coming from Maine, a rite of passage for any teenager is to read the Stephen King books, because they all take place pretty much in Maine. and we all know like Stephen King. So it's like, you got to read his books. This book kept me up over those. Because I'm like, holy yikes. There's, and we had gone through our own personal story is we had our water tested. We tested our water because it was recommended by our neighbor who lives 1/4 mile away, but our neighbor. And we found out that we have radon, but it's just right at the border, whether, like on the tippy line of being incredibly bad and not bad. The thing that was off the charts, like, we need to address this right now. Stop drinking your water. Uranium.
I know. I was like, when you said that, I was like, holy spagoli, what? Uranium? We pull people up with that. Like, what?
I know. So then I'm like going through, like, I'm researching. And so, we ordered water filters. But he talks in the book, Tony Robbins talks a lot about the heavy metals that everyone globally is experiencing and how much damage it's doing to our bodies. And so I think if there's, anything that we can, tell our listeners or encourage you to do is just have your water tested. Just even if you get it through your town, have your water tested.
You know what I just learned, and I don't remember who, I cannot recall the source, but that this person was recommending that you not use a cast iron pan as your everyday cooking utensil. Because you can get too much iron. Because it does impart to your food. And so if you were to use it once or twice a week or whatever, but if it's your everyday cooking utensil, which is also near and dear to Leone, so too much iron.
Yep. Yes.
Do you use cast iron every day?
Not every day. No.
Did anybody tell you not to use your cast iron pan?
No.
Okay, I am. I love you. Don't use your cast iron pan every day.
Because, those of us who have high ferritin levels probably. Yeah. No, I have a cast iron that is coated.
Okay. Yeah.
So yeah, it is. Yeah. So the two that I have, one is a soup pot, which, if there was any national disaster, or if I have to run to another country because of, I don't know, future elections, just saying, that's coming with me. That soup pot, I'm taking it. It's this big cast iron coated soup pot. I mean, it is, yeah. So pictures will stay here. It's okay. That's coming with me. So.
Yeah. And I remember just briefly as we're going to our last break that one of the other things that he talked about was this test called the Grail test.
Yes.
Which is very difficult. It's expensive. It's hard to come by right now. But it tests for 50 different types of cancer. And that was the one thing where I was like, yeah, I mean, it's bad enough knowing you have one, but what if I had 3? And even if they were baby cancer, I don't think I want to know. I just don't think I want to know.
There is a part where is too much information, too much, I mean, especially for the people who are obsessive and have chronic anxiety over their state of emotional or physical. I was just reading through it thinking, wow, I'm amazed that I made it to 57 at this point then,
Yeah, no kidding. Right.
Yeah. But do test your water.
Yeah.
Do.
We're going to take our last break for this show you're listening to, and that's when I realized. We'll be right back. We are back for our final segment of season 1 superlatives. Season 1 superlatives. In honor of graduation season. We did have some graduation caps on, but the tassels were giving us stroke-like symptoms, so we had to take them off. Okay, so the next two, I think were actually some of my favorite shows as far as
These,
like,
yes,
go ahead, you
these
take
were
it away.
okay, well, these probably were two of my favorite shows. So most I'm talking about too much information. Most TMI, now probably every show was a little too, my kids would probably tell you that was way too much information, Mom. But the show that both Susan and I think it was just like we both said 100%, was the Great Shapewear Debate, which actually we just had, was
our
up last show. Yeah. So why do you think it was TMI?
Well, because I had to
The
share with you the proper way to use a bathroom while wearing a one-piece bathing suit.
yes, that was yes. There was so many. I don't even know if we have to go back into it. But I laughed the whole time. And I will say, poor Jacob, he was just
Yeah.
like, wow.
He was a trooper.
He was awesome. Jacob is very young, maybe 20 something.
I think he's the same age as Juliana. I think he's like 28.
Yeah, we could so be his mothers.
I could so be his mother. Yep.
Yeah. But yeah, that was a fun show. I felt and it's the really cool thing about that show is that's the stuff that you and I talk about when we're not doing this. Like that's the stuff we talk about with completely, and we might not have been quite as animated or descriptive as we are with you and I, just, not being live. But it's just one of the shows that, one of the things that we talk about, the topics that, like, how do you go to the bathroom when you're wearing that? So Susan, being the great friend that she is, says, well, let me tell you.
Well, and yeah, and I was like, what? I mean, there's a thing called, I didn't know what it was called till I was actually researching it, called the double gusset, which makes it much easier to use the ladies' room when you are all dressed to the nines in your shapewear and your fancy dresses, or not fancy dresses. And because I have like 2 pieces of shapewear because I am not a fan of it. I hate feeling constricted like that. So there's only a few garments that I have that really kind of require it. But you have some in every color of the rainbow.
I have. So yes, I do. I will admit, I've been wearing it for years, like probably when Spanx first came out, and then there were the knockoff brands of Spanx. And I wear a lot of skirts. And when I taught, and when I wore them under my skirts and dresses, and it wasn't even, and it kind of took the place of a slip also. But it was even better than a slip.
But that's what I don't understand. This is where I'm like, I don't understand, because back in the day, we wore slips so that you couldn't see between our legs.
Well, the things have changed now. We're becoming a little more, we're progressing, I guess. But my mother still wears a slip. So I wore them not so that you wouldn't see through to see my legs. I wore them for chafing. And and when I'm sitting at my desk or sitting down, working with students, I mean, unless I wore a very long dress, it does creep up, and it just gives that little extra, I'm not graceful, so I'm not going to sit there and, with my legs crossed usually. So yeah, I'm protecting the whole world when I wear them. So anyways, I want to jump into the show that I think I will always, it makes me happy and it brings me a great deal of joy. And it was the most fun. Do you want to?
Yeah, the most fun show was I think it was titled like Look Who's Turning 50, and it was 1970s trivia. And again, Jacob was such a trooper, but I think he had a good time. Because we knew the answers to the questions of like who was turning 50, and not just people, like TV, motion picture, music, food, we have several
Political
different
events,
political events. And
history. Yeah.
so we put him to the test of trying to answer
Poor
some of
guy.
the
I will say though, when we were talking about like, I think it was like the Golden Girls or something. No, he said the
Oh.
Golden Girls. It was another show. And
yeah, what was it? Okay, hold on. I've got it right
don't
here.
remember.
It was Maude. It was Maude.
Right.
And he said, other people are whispering in my ears and giving me answers because he said Golden Girls. And we're like, no, that was so much later. Like,
That was in the 80s. Or yeah. Yeah, that was fun. He was a really good sport. Actually, I will say, give a huge shout out. Jacob was an amazing sport throughout many of our topics. Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm just looking at the notes that we had to some of the things that were, besides Watergate, it was the beginning of the Watergate scandal. And a side note, at my daughter's graduation, Bob Woodward was the speaker.
Nice.
And
did you hear it?
Yes.
Good.
We actually went into the cooling center because otherwise we would have melted because it was 95 degrees.
Yeah.
No, he was talking about, Ford and how Ford really didn't want to be vice president. And my husband knew all the history of like the backstory of Watergate. Like a lot of people thought that Ford wanted to be president and that this was sort of a, Agnew's resignation, that all this was leading up to him really wanting to be president. And he really didn't want that. He was really angry. He really, really wanted to stay Speaker of the House. He was happy doing that job. And so the takeaway from that was don't assume that you know everything, even though it looks like you do.
Oh, love it.
Yeah,
Great
it was a really good
yeah.
speech. He was
excellent.
fabulous. And he was a trooper out 95-degree weather giving a speech on the stage. So
wow.
All right, people, we have 3 minutes, which probably isn't enough time. We're saying some goodbyes because we have decided after a great deal of consideration that going forward, Leone and I, we're going to self-produce our show in order to allow for more flexibility in our schedules. So this is our last show with Transformation Talk Radio, but it has been an amazing year. And so we've got some thank yous to say because we've learned so much from everyone at the network. And we are so grateful for the encouragement of Dr. Pat and her executive producer, Linda Fearing. Sorry, it looks like fire and then it's fur.
It does.
I never know. They have been so supportive and so gracious and just so wonderful. Like I can't say enough great things about this network. We also want to thank all the staff who are behind the scenes, who actually, do all the stuff that you can see us and the show gets on all the podcast platforms. And that would be Kim. Kim does all the artwork and all of this graphics. Jessica, who is our producer today. Thank you so much, Jessica. Olivia, Jacob, our resident, our adopted son, who is such a good sport. Benny and Jamie and William, thank you so much because you make it look so easy.
And make us look like
you make us look great and sound great. And it's really not that easy. So we thank you so much from the bottom of our hearts for walking this journey with us this past year. So we're going to be taking a break for the summer to research more potential guests and to focus on creating content that you will love. So you want to keep listening. So be sure to check. We'll probably have some social media around it, but we will be back in September where you listen to your favorite podcasts. And hopefully we are one of your favorite podcasts. So final phrase, goodbye. Remember, age is just the number of years the world has been enjoying you. Thanks for listening, everybody. And we will see you back in September.
Thanks for being here with us today on And That's When I Realized. We are here to shed some light on the misconceptions around midlife by sharing real life stories and a fresh perspective.
Look, we know it's not easy, but change is constant and inevitable. Let's explore what it means to move through challenges with a dose of humor and embrace each challenge, each new discovery with a higher sense of understanding. We hope you heard something today that made you laugh and recognize the truth and comedy of midlife. See you next time.